See, Iowa's laid out like a grid, and this pipeline cuts diagonally across the grid. Think about what that means. It means every single parcel of land gets cut at the worst possible angle. You can't follow the fence line.
Do they need local support also, or is it just...
No, they kind of rolled over the local communities. But, I mean, one county, Boone County, their supervisors, their elected officials, and inspectors there have done a good job at trying to hold the company accountable. But most counties just are intimidated by them. They're afraid of a lawsuit, all the litigation that might come out of even any kind of pushback, and so they just kind of roll over. But, yeah, it's the state officials that were actually bought out. Governor Branstad being the prime, I'm going to say it, crook in this matter. I mean, this is ridiculous that Governor Branstad is backing this pipeline because he's been against big oil, trying to ruin our ethanol industry, and he's been a big champion of controlling eminent domain so it doesn't get abused. And suddenly he's doing what big oil wants, and he's okay with eminent domain. What's wrong with that picture? Well, there was some political payoff there that's hard to track given our lame campaign finance rules, but there's no doubt about it from all the anecdotal sources that I've heard that there was some big money coming into him in his campaign.
I mean, if you have that kind of money to throw around without any campaign finance laws, you can say, if you don't do what I say, I'll fund your opponent.
Right, yeah. And, Rick Perry is on the board of the company that's putting this pipeline through. And, he and Branstad were fairly close, and say no more. They're very clever, though, of course. They find ways of keeping the donations under the radar so that you can't track them. Some of the donations we haven't been able to track. There was one reporter here in Iowa who found out that a lot of the leading Senate and House Republican and Democratic lawmakers received big checks from Energy Transfer Partners, including the Democratic Majority Leader, who every time we tried to get some conversation going about strengthening eminent domain law last year, he would shut it down. Well, you know what? He got beat. So maybe we'll have a better chance at toughening eminent domain law this year with him gone. So it's not just a Republican problem. You got Democrats here who are just as bad. Our one Democratic congressman, he's terrible on this issue. He used to be a progressive, and somehow he got bought out as well. The word I heard from a prominent Republican, a guy who has historically supported Branstad and has even done fundraising, the word I heard from him was that Branstad went to a big fundraising event in Texas. This is well before the pipeline was even announced. Kelsey Warren, the head of Dakota Access, was there. And again, not sure what transpired, but the best he could come up with in terms of trying to sort it out was that Warren agreed to give Rick Perry a couple million for his campaign for president. This is ways back, and with the caveat that Governor Branstad would get half of that. And I believe, I suspect that since Branstad didn't really need all that money in his campaign for governor, he doled out a bunch of that to some of the key Republican legislators. Some of this stuff doesn't make sense unless you kind of understand that there's money involved. Because the Senate Minority Leader, who's now in charge of the Senate, Bill Dix, he floor managed the bill that strengthened eminent domain law in 2006. He floor managed the very bill that this lawsuit that we're involved with is now predicated on. And now he's on the other side. Now he's signing letters of support for the pipeline. It doesn't make any sense. He floor managed the bill. That's like when you floor manage a bill, that's the strongest statement you can make of being a proponent of that legislation. And I floor managed one bill in my time in the legislature. I was a minority party member the whole time. But the bill I floor managed was on eminent domain in 2000. But here's a guy who floor managed the 2006 bill who's now suddenly on the other side.
Did you ever get a chance to ask him about that?
No, but I'd like to someday. I would someday, yes.
So this money exchanging hands, the $2 million that came from, what's the name of the person who runs Dakota Access Pipeline?
Kelsey Warren.
Okay. Is that something that's documented, or is this kind of just a theory, or on what authority do you have?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We can't document this stuff much anymore. There's some things that can be documented, but campaign finance reporting is so weak anymore. That it's easy for those with a bunch of money to, to basically slip it into support for a candidate without really tipping their hands. So, but when I mean, the guy I'm talking to is a key Republican fundraiser, active member. Again, historically supporting Governor Branstad every re-election, and he's just really upset about how this pipeline has been crammed through, and he was willing to talk with me about it. And it's a reliable source.
Would he be willing to talk to me?
He might. I don't know. I will ask him. I will ask him. And again, it's the only thing that makes sense, because when Bill Dix suddenly goes over to the dark side on eminent domain, I mean, the guy who floor managed the bill in 2006, something's fishy. When Branstad, who always is railing against big oil, he even uses those words, big oil, and he campaigned on eminent domain, and suddenly he's on the other side of the issue. Something doesn't add up there.
Can you think of something that he said to try to justify that to his constituents?
Well, that he's the utilities board, he says, is where this decision has to be made, and that's a fair process. That we just have to let that go. But what he isn't telling people is that he totally shook up the utilities board just before the deliberations on the pipeline began. He totally shook it up. He changed the membership of it. Don't pretend, we're not that dumb. Don't pretend that the utilities board is the authority when you just change the entire membership in order to get the result you wanted.
So he put on people who are more sympathetic to the oil industry.
Yeah, well, he moved one gal off, put another on, and then demoted the one who had been chair. I will say this: the utilities board at least listened to a lot of the concerns that were raised and slowed the process down enough to get some of those addressed. But in the end, they gave Governor Branstad the result he wanted. For him to say, "My hands are, I'm not involved with this," that's just a lie. Nobody buys that.
Is he saying my hands are clean or my hands are tied?
Which metaphor works best there? He's saying that it's not his role right now. It's not the legislature's role to decide what happens on the pipeline. It's the utility board's role, and
now he's going to become part of this new administration as well?
He's going to be the ambassador to China. This may be the best export Iowa's ever had.
Are you saying that you're glad he's going, or you think he's going to contribute something to our foreign policy?
I'm thinking we're pretty glad he's going. Actually, he's the longest-serving governor in American history, and I served with him when I was in the State House. He was governor, and he was, he wasn't great, but he's gone from not great to horrible. He's just he's become so much less about listening to what people say and what folks are concerned about.
So as our demographics have changed to make multiracial self-governance more likely, and as the Supreme Court has reacted by flooding the political process with unaccountable corporate money, Democrats have become worse, Republicans have become worse, our government has become worse, and essentially corporations have run roughshod over institutions that are supposed to represent the people.
Yeah, that certainly is what's happening right now. Is we have a confluence of corporate and government power that is basically letting, in this case, one big Texas pipeline company run by one of the richest Americans ever. We're letting them run the show. We're letting them call the shots, and we're giving them the power of eminent domain. That's a power that's supposed to be in the hands of the government for the public benefit, and suddenly, and then suddenly now they're using it. Private companies using it.
Well, it's basically an amalgamation of corporate interest and government.
Yeah, it's corporate and government power coming together, and of course that's the classic definition of fascism. And I think our country just took a very frightening step further in that direction. Here we have President-elect Trump promising to drain the swamp, and it looks like he's just flooding that swamp with bigger, badder, richer crocodiles to me.